Good morning, Knicks Nation. Today is Tuesday. It is the second day of November 2021. I hope you're healthy and COVID free today. I hope your family is also healthy and COVID free. And I hope the needs of you and your family in terms of food and shelter, clothing, as well as health are being met. Blessings upon those that work in the healthcare field trying to save lives. Blessings upon those that pick up garbage for us to keep our places and our streets clean. Blessings upon those that make deliveries for our convenience. Double blessings on those trying to rescue, help, deliver, save, recover boys and girls, babies, men and women, teenagers from sex slave operations, human trafficking operations, prostitution, child prostitution, pornography and child pornography, pedophilia and child molestation. Blessings upon those trying to help and deliver these, and double curses on those that perform these heinous acts. Also, finally, blessings upon the homeless. 600,000 men, women, children, and families in the United States of America alone, and millions around the world without a roof over their head. Blessings upon them, for theirs is the kingdom. And blessings upon those trying to help them. There was a basketball game last night, and we talked about, as a preview, we talked about the fact that in the NBA, on any given night, any team can beat any team. We talked about how Toronto was a dangerous team, very well coached team, a disciplined team, playing very good basketball without Pascal Siakam, arguably their best player. And even last night, we found out yet before the game that Scotty Barnes, who also is, he is a superstar in the future. He is to me. He's going to be a superstar in the future. He's already a star right now. He was missing. But we also talked about OG Anunoby and his budding stardom, getting drafted out of Indiana for defense, and athleticism, now turning to a two-way player. Well, as we saw last night, the New York Knicks jumped out to a lead in the first quarter. Julius Randle started the first quarter with 18 points in the first quarter. R.J. Barrett continued his aggression that he showed Saturday night in New Orleans. And so it looked good in the first quarter. But the problem was the Knicks, a couple of problems. Number one, the Knicks were doing very well first quarter. Even in the second quarter, they were doing very well. Beginning of the third quarter and really end of the second quarter, they started slacking up. And there was also one problem I felt. So Derrick Rose, the Knicks bench is mob deep. They wanted to work the best benches in the basketball, in the whole basketball, in all NBA, the Knicks bench. We have gotten used to depending on them. And we should, because they're really good. The bench is led by Derrick Rose. He's generally the high scorer. He's the catalyst. He's the one that gets everything going. Derrick Rose didn't really have it offensively last night. He scored 4 points, but he was still being effective in terms of just that whole second unit. They only scored 22 points last night. And Toronto's bench, I think, scored similar. I think they only had like 22 points. They actually had 17. Yeah, so neither bench was blowing it out the water last night. But there was a point where Tom Thibodeau subs out Derrick Rose and subs in Kemba Walker. And I didn't understand why. And then he subbed out Mitchell Robinson, who was really dominating the board last night. And he subbed in Taj Gibson. Kind of understand that because it looked like he wanted to go small. So at that point, if you're focusing on the offensive side of basketball, we still looked good. But we started weakening on the defensive side at that point, right there. Okay. And that was in the second quarter. OG Anunoby and Gary Trent Jr. Now, Gary Trent Jr., if you recall, he's been a big shot maker. He was drafted in the second round, I believe. And he was a big shot maker in Portland who initially drafted him. But he showed out. I think his rookie year was during the COVID, the bubble. He was drafted in the second round, by Sacramento, but he ended up on Portland, and he was a big shot maker in the bubble for Portland. and he showed himself to be that. So he's got heart. I was looking at him as a free agent, if you recall. I was looking at him, but they traded him for Norman Powell to Toronto, and Toronto wasn't going to let him go. Matter of fact, Toronto gave him the bag. Here he is, 37th overall pick. He's really in his third year, and he got a bag already, from Toronto. So he's really good. I mentioned yesterday that his only weakness at that point that I saw was his defense. He's already polished for a guy so young, offensively, athletic as all. And, I knew that he was good. But last night he stripped Julius Randle. He strips Evan Fournier defensively. So he really has improved on the defensive, and he was already good. And then, of course, he was killing us offensively. He ended up, let's see here. He ended up with more than 20 points. Let's see. He ended up, I'll tell you right now. And I know Anunoby ended up with 36. And he was victimizing both Julius Randle, Anunoby is, as well as AB was trying. Burks was trying. He did a better job on him, I think, than Julius did. But he was going off on anybody that was trying to guard him last night. So OG had 36. Gary Trent had 26. So they were both killing us. It comes down to this. The Knicks stopped playing hard on both ends of the floor. They were scoring, and that even stopped when they started pressing in the fourth quarter. Julius was pressing a little bit. After he started off with 18, I thought he was going to end up with 40. He was playing in the flow. He wasn't forcing anything. Then he tried to start forcing stuff, and he had some really bad turnovers. And then by the time you get to the fourth quarter, they weren't out of sync completely. There was no more ball movement. There was no more, scrambling on defense. And at that point, I felt like, okay, so Kemba was offensive minded and he was doing his thing. A defensive liability, though. He could not guard Gary Trent Jr. He could not guard Fred VanVleet. D Rose, for some reason, did not close the game. I don't know what happened, but he was out of sync. And this is the second game. He only had 4 points yesterday, which is not like him. I mean, we're used to D Rose getting double figures. He's a double figure machine. He had 4 points, but he was +7. And then the same thing happened Saturday night. He had an off night Saturday night. I don't know what's going on, but we've been spoiled by Derrick Rose because he's the leader of that second unit. And whenever we need a spark, the second unit provides it. So I don't know what happened, but I hope he's okay. But defensively, we were lacking from the point guard spot with Kemba last night. And then Julius was forcing a couple of things. He only had 3 turnovers. And his stats look good. He was 7 of 14, 9 boards, 5 assists. Problem was, the Knicks had 16 turnovers yesterday. Toronto only had 8 turnovers. We had 16. Okay, and they were scoring off of their turnover, creating turnovers from us. That was another problem. So you had OG Anunoby doing his thing, 36. You had Gary Trent Jr. doing his thing, 26. They played better defense than we did. They played harder for 48 minutes than we did. They were down 15 a couple of times and just kept grinding and came back. And that's what I was noticing. With all of the hoopla, all the noise going on in Madison Square Garden, it's like the Knicks were, if it was a prize fight, the Knicks were throwing knockout punches and they were taking the punches and still fighting. Okay. They didn't go away. When I saw that the Knicks were hitting all kind of threes and we were only up like 7 and they weren't playing that well and they were only down 7, that's not a good sign. And so then I expected a run. I expected a Knick run in the fourth quarter. Really never came. It really never came. They outscored us. We outscored them by 3 in the fourth, but that third quarter, they got us by 16, and that was the ball game right there. So it was the turnovers. It was lack of playing for 48 minutes. You cannot slack off at any time in an NBA game. We're supposed to be trying to be a 48-minute team. Okay, that's problem number 2. number one, you can't take your foot off the pedal at all in the NBA. You crush a team you're supposed to crush. Okay. You want to start subbing in people in the fourth when you're up 30. Okay. But you can't do it during the course of a game. Every NBA team makes a run. It's just part of the NBA. They always do that. So the Knicks slacked off in the third. They didn't get the production they normally get from the bench. The starters didn't play defense the way they should. RJ continued his assault. To me, they should have been looking for RJ more. I mean, I understand they want to hit the open man, and that's good. But this kid is on fire right now. He scored 35 Saturday night. He scored 27 last night. Okay, so he's really on fire right now. You want to keep feeding him. To me, you want to keep him in the flow of the offense all the time. He only took 13 shots. I thought he should have probably taken more. He played 39 minutes, and he could only guard one guy. Okay, he could only guard one guy. So he was guarding Gary Trent at some point. He was guarding OG at some point, but he could only guard one of them. And when he would guard one, the other one would go off. See, so, and then Mitchell Robinson, I don't understand why he was taken out the game. He was totally dominating. We only had, as a team, right? They out-rebounded us 48-41 last night. We only had 7 offensive rebounds. They had 13 offensive rebounds. But of the 7 we had, 5 of them were from Mitch. So I don't understand not having him in the game longer than the 28 minutes he played. He should have been in there longer. Maybe he was hurt. Maybe he was sore. I don't know. But that was the ball game. So hopefully we learn. Again, overall, I'm saying this. The Knicks have to learn that they're not good enough to coast at any point in any game. They're not good enough to take anybody lightly. Anybody. Okay? They're not. They're good enough to beat anybody when they're focused for the whole game. Okay? They must focus on becoming a 48-minute team. The first quarter, that should be all 4 quarters. The ball movement, the defense, the rebounding, the protection of the rim. That got to be 4 quarters. Okay? Teams are going to make runs. They're going to be hitting shots that, you can't do nothing about. That's going to happen. But if you make that 4 quarters of ball movement, 4 quarters of defense, 4 quarters of hitting the board, protecting the rim, we're going to win most of our games. That's how it's going to be. Now, nobody expected the Knicks to go 81-1, right? We knew they were going to lose some games. They still going to lose some games. And I did tell y'all, expect, a slow start, especially a defensive-oriented team. Their defense is not where it's going to be in 2 months. It's going to get better. And hopefully, we start incorporating some more Deuce in there. I thought we could have used some Deuce last night the way Gary Trent was doing his thing. You could have put RJ Barrett on OG Anunoby and had Deuce guarding Gary Trent. That would have been, to me, something you might want to do. But that's up to Thibodeau. And he don't like to play a lot of rookie minutes, right? So that's just what it is. Now, IQ played 19 minutes. He scored 7 points. He was +7, but he wasn't a major factor. So you got IQ wasn't a major factor. D Rose wasn't a major factor. Obi was starting to be a factor, but he plays 13 minutes. He only got 4 shots. He's not going to be much of a factor if he don't get more minutes. There's that. Burks, he played 16 minutes. He played good defense. He did hit, he knocked down a 3, but we just didn't have it. And then the first unit, just too many turnovers. The first unit had the starting unit. They had 12 turnovers. The starting unit. They had 12 turnovers. You can't turn the ball over like that. You can't. Not in the NBA. So, look, the good thing about it is this. If there's a coach that goes back and looks at film and makes sure his team is ready to play after a loss, it's Tom Thibodeau. Okay, so, and this is good because Indiana won last night. There was a night last night we could have picked up some ground, but Indiana won last night. I knew they got Karis LeVert back. I don't know when TJ Warren is coming back, but they got Karis LeVert back. They beat San Antonio 131-118 last night. They are going to be a problem. We play them on Wednesday night at Indiana. Okay, so it's a game for us to to try to play 48 minutes of solid basketball, to play 48 minutes of good defense. We really have to do that. Last night they had 6 players in double figures. Duarte is playing his butt off. He had 18. Levert has 16. He's still rounding into game shape and form. Drew Holiday had 17. They're going to be a problem, man. They're going to be a problem. We got to be ready for Indiana. They're 2-6, but don't sleep on them. They're 2-6, but they're better than 2-6. Okay, so that's the next game. We'll talk about that tomorrow, but I have a feeling we'll be ready for that game. Like I said, we have to be a 48-minute team. We can't, Julius Randle scores 18 in the first quarter and then 4 points the rest of the game. I mean, no, that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable. Okay. And that's just simply not playing 48 minutes, period. Okay. Period. We have to be better. All right. We have to be. So, again, it's early in the season. So it's too early to make judgments. Some people like to make seasonal judgments based on the first month of the season. Don't do that. It's a long season. So the Knicks are going to get better. They're going to get better as the season goes on. They're going to win some. They're going to lose some. They're going to win 50 plus games this year. I'm still sticking with that. But these are growing pains. Let's put it that way. They're growing pains. And so the Knicks are learning, to be a good team, consistently a good team. Okay. And I think they're going to pick it up. We're seeing the maturation of an RJ Barrett. We knew that he was getting better. I thought before the season started that you're going to be looking at a possible all-star with RJ Barrett because of the progression he's making year by year. And he's going to continue to do that. He's our rising star right now. You got to continue to get him in a position to succeed. And they do it for the most part. I think you should ride him a little bit more though now that he's really hot. But okay, so I don't have too many complaints about that. I just want them to be a 48-minute team, to learn how to do that, to not get all hyped because you up by 20 or whatever, and just keep grinding. Don't stop grinding. That's the key. Keep grinding. Teams are not, this is the NBA. To me, I have not seen, like I said, this much parity in the NBA in a long time. I mean, really, the parity started going out the window when LeBron went to, when Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett went to Boston and formed a big three with Paul Pierce, and then Rajon Rondo, and then after that, LeBron counters and he goes to Miami, with Bosh and D Wade. The parity started going out the window a little bit. Even though during that same time, Dallas did win a championship and San Antonio won a championship with a balanced team, but people started looking for big threes. That's when Durant all of a sudden now decides he wants to go to Golden State, and that was the era. But I think that era is played out now because every team plays hard. Every team is well coached. Every team is really focused on getting better. Okay. Nobody's tanking. Everybody's trying to win. Okay. Even your worst teams, your Detroits and Houstons, they trying to win. Okay. So, you can't sleep on anybody. And that's what happened the 2 games the Knicks have lost. They slept on Orlando. They had a big lead against Orlando and we lost it. And we had a big lead against Toronto and we lost it. Okay. There's a pattern here. So they have to learn to play the whole game. Complete game. Again, I still think inserting Deuce into some minutes right here would help us. I think that would help us a lot. But again, that's up to Tom. I think Deuce is going to get his chance. It's a long season, so I have a feeling he's going to get his chance. But I think we could have used him last night. But anyway, it's just me. But Toronto played a great game. They played 48 minutes of basketball. They ground. They went off. They beat us. Okay, period. So here we go. Next one's in Indiana. There's a good thing about the NBA. You got another one coming. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow. In the meantime, enjoy your Tuesday. Be safe out there. Shalom.